Kenzie.
I have it easy. I do. Thank you so much, Anthony and Kenzie and our music ministry for that. Beautiful and smooth and powerful. And thank you again also to Xenia for that beautiful testimonial about the power of our community. Not the power of community, which is powerful. The power of our community. Amen? Beautiful. So I have it easy. So whether you like the next bit or not, you're good, right? Oh. So how many of us have added a new friend on social media or followed a page that made us smile or blocked somebody on social media that disrupted our peace? Oh, come on, people. I know what year we're in. Well, guess what? It turns out that our social media habits are our spiritual training. So, next time somebody says that you're on TikTok too long or you're going down your Instagram feed way too long, Tom, just let them know, honey, I am in spiritual practice. Now I got to convince them. But joking aside, especially this year, I know with everything going on in the world outside of us, I'm especially mindful that so many people started to be more mindful about how we were curating our social media habits, right? I heard so many people talking about, I'm going to go block this person, or I'm going to no longer do this, right? And so it's within us right now, especially to be more mindful about social media and what we allow into our feed. And I believe that just like we are being curators of our social media, we have the opportunity to be curators of the spiritual feed, the spiritual nourishment that we receive, the ways in which we are allowing the outside world to support us in getting deeper into the essence of our being, right? And so that means adding friends and new friends, or being more mindful about the things that we're adding, being more mindful about what it is that we're following and how that is shaping us and shaping our worldview and allowing us to go deeper into the essence of our being or forget about the truth of our being. And also like recognizing that there are things that don't require our attention no more. Right? There are things, blocking sounds like such a strong word, and we can be more mindful about the things that we allow and the things that we are releasing, right? Now, I have been sort of going through that also, not necessarily maybe to a deep extreme, but just inviting myself to be more mindful. I think twice about accepting somebody's friendship on social media. I remember when social media first came up, I was like, ooh, I want to get to that 5,000 max friends list on Facebook, right? And now it's like, wait a minute. If I'm going to allow somebody into my space, I want to be mindful about that. And as social media has continued to evolve, right? Like we know that we get a whole lot of fake friend requests, right? How many of you are getting those fake friend requests? How many of you get the fifth or sixth or seventh friend request from that same person that you just saw, and you know that's not their profile, right? And what do those fake profiles tend to do? They're trying to steal our identity. But think about that. How many of the things that we add to ourselves are truly trying to steal our identity, the identity of knowing that we are one with God, the identity of knowing that we are whole, that we are complete, that everything God is already within us, that we have that Christ nature within ourselves. And how many times do we allow, because that's what it is, we allow somebody else or something else to steal our joy, to steal our peace, to steal our sense of what it means to be out into the world with the light of God as that which we lean on, as that which we reflect and bring up. I've been very mindful of clicking that add a friend, and I've been also very mindful of the things that I follow. We are living in this world of so much information, and I think that I've become even more mindful about what it is that I want to be informed about and what it is, or how are the ways in which I want to be involved. I was an MSNBC, like, no matter what I was doing, I was on the news in the background, right? And with everything going on, I started to realize, like, I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm going too deep. I'm spiraling down rather than looking at the ways in which I can spiral up, right? And so I became more mindful, and I started to just follow certain channels, right? Things that allowed me to be inspired into right action, but not get lost in apathy or anger or frustration, right? How many of you have been curating some of your social media in that way? Yes? You know, and then there is that opportunity to really be about, like, what it is that we want to block from our way of being. What is it that we want to just put a little separation before it separates me, right? It's like, put a little separation here so that I'm not separated from the truth of my being, so that I'm not separated from that guidance that I am receiving from within. And while I may not have blocked a lot of people, I have gone into discernment and asking myself, is there value in this connection? Is there an opportunity in this connection? I may not agree with everything that may be shared on social media, for example, by the people that are in my feed. And I ask myself, but is there a value? Is there a relationship? Is there something, an opportunity within it? And if it's not, you know, and nobody notices, right? Like, it's those people in the feed that you really don't notice, right? But so this is what I want to share with you about how the way in which we're living out in social media, and, you know, this is Unity 101, right? Where the things that are going on within us get pictured out into the world, and sometimes we can be so aware of that we check ourselves out in the world. And sometimes it's about looking out into the world and asking ourselves, how is this inferring in me what is going on within me that I may not have seen or may not have been as conscious of? And so that's where I am with it, right? And so who would have thunk that you blocking your Tio Paco and your aunt that you haven't seen in 20 years was, in fact, spiritual practice? Look at that. We are always in spiritual practice. So there's this story. I don't have a Tio Paco. I was very careful about the names I used in this storytelling. And there is this story about a spiritual teacher who once took her students to a neglected garden. The weeds were overrun all over the place. There were thorny vines that had taken over the flower beds. There was like a broken fountain with no water in it for many years. It had long dried up. And the teacher asked the students, what do you see? And one of the students says, I see disorder. Another one says, I see wasted beauty. The third one says, it's just far too gone. And the teacher in that moment just smiles and looks at all of them and says, well, this is what happens when we forget that we are the gardeners of our own minds. How many of us have forgotten to tend to our own garden? The mind, the heart, the soul of who we are. And we can look at the garden and think it's far too gone. We can look at the garden and think that we'll never be able to clean it all up. And that's a very self-defeating way of seeing it, right? Because if that's what you believe, that is what you will experience. That is what you will get. And we are here in this time, in this place, with this opportunity to ask ourselves, okay, maybe I wasn't being so mindful. Okay, maybe I let some of the weeds grow a little bit longer. Okay, I was tired. Who needs spiritual practice? I want to sleep in and not meditate. And we can start over again. It's never lost, right? And it's always an opportunity to go deeper, an opportunity to tend, and an opportunity to start looking at what it is that we want to nourish and grow, not only within our lives, but within our consciousness. And so, let's get started about adding, right? We believe in unity that we are co-creators with the divine, but what does that mean? What does it mean to be a co-creator? For me, what it means is that, yes, there are ways in which it can raise my vibration. There are ways of envisioning my life. There are ways of allowing more of God's good to be experienced by me, right? And so, yes, to hold in prayer and to hold in consciousness, the perfect job, the perfect relationships, the perfect things that will bring about a greater sense of joy in our lives. And it's also about the consciousness by which we're experiencing life. Because for me, being a co-creator is not necessarily just about what we are living, it's about how we're experiencing what we are living, right? And so maybe it isn't having the right and perfect job in this very moment. And are we experiencing it from a sense of oneness, a sense of awareness, a sense of my good is here now and further good is on its way? Or is it that self-defeating, whatever, oh well? And so the opportunity right now is for us to look at what it is that we're allowing ourselves to experience and to know that what we allow into our consciousness truly shapes our reality. Get that? What we allow into our feed shapes our reality. And so we can cultivate the kind of reality that we want to live. And so who and what is in your spiritual feed? Who and what are you allowing to be in your feed? Is it something that is building you up? Is it something that is fortifying you? Is it something that brings you closer to the awareness that we are all one? Is it something that is bringing you to a sense of peace and harmony? And in Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, we are reminded to be very conscious of what we allow into our conscious minds. It says, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, think about these things. You know, I was actually talking to somebody after the first service, and they were sharing with me a little bit of something that's happening in their world and how they get challenged and they go into those moments of fear and go into those moments of anger. She's like, what can I do? And I was just like, first of all, I had just spoken about this, and I also thought to myself, you know what, golden key it. When those moments of challenge, when those moments of discomfort come up, the golden key is think about God. Think about truth. Think about the things that bring you joy. You may not necessarily have to put all the bells and whistles around it. Just say it out loud. A challenge comes up, God. A difficulty comes up, love. A difficult situation starts to present itself, peace. You may not feel it, but at least you're stopping that thought in that very moment and saying, there's an alternative. There is something else that I can add to my consciousness. There is something else that I can add into my experience. And the moment that we speak it, we may not feel it, but we create a way. We create a little door by which we can experience more of. And so I really encourage you to add truth, to add joy, to add gratitude, to ask yourself how you can add compassion to yourself, healthier relationships. How can I add nourishing practices to my experience? And you say, oh, but there's just not enough room, right? There's not enough room to do all those things. There's not enough time. There's not enough energy. How many have said, there's not enough time, there's not enough energy, there's not enough space for the things that can bring me joy? Be honest. Whether you say that to yourself, out loud, or within those tiny little thoughts that perk up sometimes, we tend to speak that to ourselves. And we know the truth. The things that can empower us, the thing that can build us up, there is always room for that. There is always time and energy for that because we get to choose where we put our energy, where we put our time, and where we put our efforts. And so if you think that there's no time for those things, I invite you to think about the things that you can release so that you can have that time. You know, a couple of years ago, I really wanted to be more intentional about just the middle of the week. I'm looking at Michelle here and other staff members. We get lost. There's a whole lot of things happening at Unity on the Bay if you don't know. And so halfway through the week, we're getting already a little bit lost sometimes with all the activities and all the things. And yeah, we don't have space for more things. And you know what? We have space for prayer. We have more space for peace of mind. And so we added a Wednesday when we were in the midst of so much going on, we threw something else in, which was a Wednesday 12:30 prayer every week to center us, to remind us of our truth. And it's been amazing because now on average we have 25 to 30 people stopping whatever they're doing in the middle of the week to come into prayer, to bring their prayer intentions and their prayer requests. But more importantly, lately, what's also been brought in is the ways in which our prayers have been answered. And we've been able to witness that in each other and in our lives. And all of a sudden, we have the time to come together. We have that time to add something that builds up our faith. And so the question becomes, what are the things that you can add to your spiritual feed in order for you to be uplifted by faith, uplifted by love, and uplifted by the very power of God? There is enough time, there is enough energy, there is enough space. It's just about us curating how we're using all of those things. Now with the follow, like I said, I become more mindful of the pages that I follow, and I'll be honest, some of them, they're just really funny. And some of them are just really pretty people. And some of them are all over the place. And I'm more mindful about what I follow. And get this, literally get this. The best, most powerful influencer is already alive within you. The most powerful influencer is already alive within each of us. That's what we get invited to truly follow. That is what we want to lean on in our spiritual feed. And for me, really, when we look at what we're following, what we're looking at is, where do we find influence? Where do we find wisdom, right? How do we learn to do something new? How do we learn to do something that's been in our hearts? More and more and more, look within. What and who are we following? We are following spirits. We are following the nudge of intuition. But we have to look at that, right? We have to get clearer about what it feels like to be able to follow it, to be able to hear it. And that's where our practices of prayer and meditation come in. The more that we are about it, the more we will be able to understand it when it shows up. And there is a whole lot of fake news on social media. I'm not telling you anything new. How many of you are like, oh my God, look at that person sharing all those fake news. I can't believe that they would do such a thing, yes? And we get into the judgments of it. How many of you have mistakenly found yourself sharing some fake news? I have to tell you, it was so funny to me because, in the world of polarities, right? A lot of times I think it's the others that are sharing fake news. And here we were, Pope Leo, which is wonderful, the new pope that we have. And listen, people found online 2 things that he had said, like in opposition to something going on with Donald Trump or J.D. Vance. 2 things that I could find, right? But all of a sudden he became this savior. And I don't know if you were like me, but all of a sudden I started seeing all these huge quotes about inclusivity and love and grace that were being shared online that Pope Leo said, right? How many of you saw a bunch of those? I looked them up. Fake news. Fake news. And it felt good, and so we shared it. It felt comfortable, and so we shared it. And the question becomes, are we being mindful? Because yes, sometimes listening to the ego makes us feel good, superficially. Sometimes listening to the ego makes us feel big, superficially. Sometimes listening to the ego sounds true, superficially. But we're not about the superficiality of life. We're about the depth of life. We are about going deeper and deeper within. And so I really invite you to be looking out for fear, false evidence appearing real, false things on your social media, on your feed, in your life that appear to be real, but in fact are actually keeping you from the reality that God is good all the time and all the time. And we can live more and more into that. To be thinking about how when we don't choose spirit, we are choosing ego. And what does ego do? It edges God out. It edges the blessings and the miracles out. It edges everything that we want to experience, everything that we want to embody, and everything that we truly want to share, whether we're conscious of it or not, out of the way. And when we move into the fake sharing and the fake news, what we're doing is we are forgetting that we're always aligned with truth, and we keep choosing ego over that still small voice. And the choice becomes clearer and clearer as we move through it. Thomas Merton says, people may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find that once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. Experienced that before in life? And so before we start climbing the ladder, before we start looking at the tools and the practices, let's make sure that they're leaning on God. Let's make sure that they're leaning on the Christ within us. Again, and by the way, this is one of the fill in the blanks in our app today. The best influencer is the one that we have within ourselves. Spirit or ego. Superficial good, a good that knows no bound. We get to choose it. We get to curate it. Last, blocking. How many of you got a little trigger happy? Maybe a little trigger happy after elections, right? Like that's, I think, when it mostly happens. No matter on which side you're in, that's when we get on the trigger happy. Block. Like, can't there be a whole group blocking all at once? Haven't they figured that out, right? Well, before you begin to get more trigger happy with blocking people, the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu sacred text, says this: let a man lift himself by his own self. Let him not degrade himself, for the self alone is the friend of the self, and the self alone is the enemy of the self. I know. I had to read that one twice for myself. But peace is our natural state. Anything that is not aligned with the natural state of being can be released. And can we release it with love? Can we release it with the same peace that we want to live into? And so I just want to share, block, delete, whatever you want. And from a spiritual perspective, can we be so more aware that it's not the other person that we need to block? It's our judgments of the other person. It's our reactions towards the other person. It's not the situation itself. It's our experience of the situation that we have to work with. And through that, when we heal that, when we move through that, then we can take the kind of action that we want. Then we can add the relationships, the things in our spiritual feed, or even our social media feed that will lift us up. But it is an inner job. And we, a lot of times, just try to give it away and put it outside of us because sometimes it's easier. It is easier to block that person. It's much harder, and it's much more of a spiritual practice to be in relationship with somebody that doesn't agree with you, to be in relationship with somebody that may be completely off. I'm not saying that they're onto something. No, they may be completely off, but it is my relationship to that matters, and it is my relationship to that brings about spiritual unfoldment and evolution. Daring to set boundaries is an important aspect of it, and setting boundaries really is about the courage to love ourselves and the courage to love our spiritual unfoldment in a way that feels true and allows us to go deeper into the essence of God. So what are the patterns? What are the people? And what are the habits that you are ready to block this very moment so that you can experience peace, love, joy, and harmony in bigger ways? Now, that teacher that brought those kids over to that garden, the second part of that story is that, they realized that it had been overgrown, but they didn't just talk about it, right? As a teacher would do, the teacher provided tools for divine action. And so the teacher says to one of the students as she gives them the tool, add seeds of joy, hope, and kindness. Plant what you wish to harvest. To another student, it says, follow the sunlight. Let the light guide your planting and your pruning. And to the third student, it says, block the weeds. Pull them out, but not in anger, but with the love for the beauty that is beneath it. And in that moment, she looks at the students and says, your soul is not broken. You are not unworthy. You are not lost. You are simply waiting for you to tend to yourself again. And so, I believe in the divine algorithm. I call it grace. What comes up is coming up for a reason within our feed and our consciousness and our mind so that we can know our wholeness again, so that we can add what it is that brings us into oneness, so that we can follow that which inspires us into oneness, and so that we can block the things that have kept us for far too long in knowing our oneness. Peace is the result of that. And we need to curate our consciousness just like we do Facebook and Instagram. I'm not cool enough to be on TikTok, but I do have an AOL account still. And listen, friends, We wouldn't let toxic influencers be a part of our timeline, right? And so why are we giving them that power within our mind and within our consciousness? It is time to add truth, to follow spirit, and to block the nonsense. And it is in that we heal, that we bring ourselves back to wholeness. It is that which we begin to trust the God within, and more importantly, longer than a TikTok moment or longer than an Instagram trend, it becomes that which truly feeds us. Namaste. Blessings.